welcome to ARC online conference, and I'm very happy to see you all. I hope you all are doing good. And our topic today is em- employment of a refugee in Malaysia. Employment of refugee in Malaysia is very important topic. We feel is very important because refugees in Malaysia are not supported by any parties, even though they are under UNHCR Malaysia. And it is also very important for us because these refugees are already in Malaysia, and there are more than 200,000 refugees in Malaysia. So the resettlement rate for UNHCR Malaysia is only around 1.6. The highest resettlement rate in the past 5 years is 1.6 and something like that. So if the 2,000 refugees in Malaysia, if they let's say if they will resettle all the refugees in Malaysia, it will take with their highest rate, it will take more than 50 years. So this refugee will be in Malaysia. So we need to think about it. So this is a little bit about why this topic is important for us. So I will introduce our speaker, and then I will let brother Aslam to discuss on the topic. So first of all, my name is Fayaz Ahmad. I am a Rohingya refugee student living in Malaysia, and I am working as a chief executive officer for Arakan Rohingya Council, and also program manager for alum empowerment. And I am co-founder of Arakan Rohingya Council and alum empowerment. So I would like to introduce our speaker today about Sister Hasna Hussein. Hasna Hussein is a Rohingya refugee who was born and raised in Malaysia. She had resettled in United States of America, and currently working as a refugee education developer for the citizenship program at Catholic Charities. Her goal is to empower refugee community to reach their best version of themselves to deal with their daily challenges as New American. She seeks to work in collaboration with community to strengthen their community and individual needs. She is from Myanmar, formerly Burma, an ethnic Rohingya who was born in Malaysia and got a chance to go to government school, I think. And she is an experienced researcher, having been involved different research around refugees and migrant community issues and program back in Malaysia. So another speaker will be Brother Aslam. About Brother Aslam Abdul Jalil. Brother Aslam Abdul Jalil is a PhD candidate researching on refugee work rights. His academic background is in anthropology, public policy, and business studies. Aslam has been advocating for refugee rights in Australia and Malaysia since 2013. So first of all, I would like to invite Brother Aslam to discuss on our topic today. Inshallah, after this discussion, Sister Hasna Hussein will discuss on our topic. Maybe we can prepare our question during her talk. After her discussion, we will directly go to question and answer section. So please welcome Brother Aslam Abdul Jalil for his discussion and sharing our knowledge.
Thank you, Fayaz, and the organizer. Yeah, it's happy to be here today. It's an honor to be invited to discuss this topic. Yeah, I just want to clarify, Faiz. So, do I how many minutes given to me to discuss?
Yeah, is depend. You can take from 20 minutes to 30 minutes.
Okay, or maybe not 20 minutes straight. Maybe if there's anything Hasna wants to add, feel free to do so. Yeah, so I guess then it won't be like one way discussion, I suppose.
Yes,
Um,
yes, yes. It's
okay.
better to spend more time in question and answer section.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you. So, as Brother Faya has already mentioned, there are many refugees in Malaysia. They are in the state of limbo, with no real solution because they are unable to return to their home countries, especially majority of refugees from Myanmar living in Malaysia. And the resettlement places are not many. So yeah, some very few. Very few refugees got very lucky to be resettled. So they are basically living in Malaysia. Um, so in Malaysia, Malaysia is not a state party to the Refugee Convention, and this has been the excuse given by the Malaysian government not to give any rights or protection because they say we're not signatory to the Refugee Convention and therefore we have no obligations to do so. And they always mention about based on humanitarian grounds, we host them. I always challenge the notion of Malaysian humanitarian grounds because basically Malaysia tries to avoid taking any responsibility using the term humanitarian grounds because what's happening nowadays, as we all know, in terms of employment, there's like exploitation happening within the refugee community as undocumented workers. I would like to stress that even though Malaysia does not recognize refugee status formally, Malaysia acknowledges the presence of refugees in the country through National Security Council Order number 23. This classifies refugees as PATI, that's the Malay acronym referring to the illegal migrants, UNHCR card holders. And National Security Council Order number 24 states that these PATI UNHCR card holders are allowed to be self-sustained, to be self-sustained, to sustain themselves. However, there's no formal right to work, and of course it's contradictory, even though NSC order number 24 says that refugees can self-sustain themselves, but in reality, during raids, for example, refugees also get arrested. um, and I think this issue, the absence of the right to work for refugees, also contributes to our bad performance in trafficking in persons report record by the U.S. State Department. So basically, if anyone is not familiar with this tip report is an evaluation by the U.S. State Department on each country's performance in trafficking issues. So this year, there are four tiers basically: tier one, tier two watch list, and tier three. So tier T is the lowest. That means if you're in tier three, you have serious problems with trafficking issues. And sadly, this year, 2021, Malaysia has been relegated to tier three. And I checked the reports actually. I checked the reports since 2013 until 2021. It is specifically mentioned about the absence of work rights for refugees. Refugees cannot obtain legal work permits, and this means they are vulnerable to trafficking and exploitation, including children being in forced begging. They are being forced to beg. So this means, it's a great deal. If you're talking about national image, by not respecting human rights in the country, it tarnishes our image, and somehow this will also affect, our trade. Our trade. The trade between countries, because I think since last year, there were several cases of import bans imposed by the US because of the forced labor issues. But in those cases, the cases actually involved migrant workers. So, and with documents, they are documented migrant workers. So I would argue that if we use the same labor standards, international labor standards, looking at, refugee situation, working informally in the country, they face similar or perhaps even worse exploitation than these migrant workers. So it is a serious issue. Um, I also would like to say that people say there's no laws governing refugees at the moment. I Yes, that is true. However, that does not mean that Malaysia cannot do anything. Malaysia, I mean, ideally, we want Malaysia to sign the Refugee Convention. That's great. But if Malaysia does not sign the Refugee Convention, we still can do a lot, especially by allowing refugees to work legally in the country. So in the past, Malaysia has done this by issuing IMM 13 permits to some refugees from the Moro refugees from southern Philippines. The Achinese refugees, 35,000 of them got IMM 13 permits, as well as the Syrian refugees. Currently, around 3,000 of them got IMM 13 permits. So with IMM 13 permit, a pass holder will be able to work legally and access education as well as discounted prices to healthcare. Of course, there are some issues with the implementation of IMM 13 permits. However, I think this is an option that Malaysia can take. And anyway, IMM 13 permit, is allowed under Malaysian laws. And it is issued based on humanitarian consideration because these people need protection, and therefore IMM 13 permit is something that is doable and also legal under the current legislative and administrative framework, even without signing the Refugee Convention. So that's from the policy level. I think I'll stop there. Yeah, probably we can continue with other issues later. Thank you.
Thank you very much for highlighting the current issue of Rohingya refugees in Malaysia, especially regarding employment of refugee in Malaysia by Brother Aslam. So we will continue with Sister mm, Sister Hasna from US. She is joining from USA now. So please welcome Sister Hasna to discuss on our topic today. So inshallah, after this, we will go for question and answer. You can prepare your question maybe, or you can type it and send us through the chat. Maybe Brother Aslam will prepare your answer. After discussion of Sister Hasna, we will go to question and answer, inshallah. So please welcome Sister Hasna for the discussion.
Thank you, Brother Fayaz, and Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Walaikum
My name
salam.
is my name is Hasna, as Brother Fayaz keeps saying, joining from USA, but still I'm grounded to Malaysia. Malaysia, place I was born, not my country. Yes, they don't accept me. I'm neither American, not even Myanmarese. So Brother Aslam will talk about policies. He is PhD holder. I am not. He's PhD holder, he's candidate, but I can talk from personal experience. I will pick up from the line Brother Aslam says, Malaysia did acknowledge, Malaysia are acknowledged about presence of refugee in their country, but with a sentence saying self-sustaining. I just wish I could sit with the government and just ask, when you say self-sustaining, what it's defined. We are not allowed to do business. Okay, first, we are not allowed to do business. We are not allowed to have a place, licensed place where we can do business, whether for food, material, or other sort of thing. So what option left? If we want to do business, we need legal approval. Since we are in a country where it's democracy, we need to obey all the laws. We need legal approval, documents. We need um, at least a guarantor who can be represent themselves that this is their place. We are there to work for them. So other than all this legal paperwork, we also need high budget to do a business. Whether a business that start from home, such as cooking, we don't have that. We don't have social security. We don't have saving. We are living in our daily expenses. When COVID-19 started, only Allah Ta'ala know how migrants and refugees survive. We are literally begging online, offline, whoever can donate, please donate. And we were living out of those donations. And I'm not denying majority Malaysian. Majority mean really, I believe it's at least 80% of Malaysian, Malay, Bumi Putra, Chinese, Indian are very humankind. They are so touched with thousand story out there dying every day because they don't have these rights and they have to beg. Not beg on the street anymore. It's begging in international level, asking can we have our rights. Self-sustaining mean a lot. When we are working for people, such as position in employment, and we are not recognized as employment. From personal experience, I work with many organizations I would not mention because I don't want to put them in danger. But I was a volunteer. I don't have insurance covered. If anything happened for me while I was working, okay, let's say I died, whether it's car accident, COVID, or anything, my mom, dad, and my 4 years old daughter gonna be on street. And trust me, nobody will be there to help my parents, but people will be judging my parents and my daughter. Hell, these refugees are begging again. That's not fair. That's not fair. You don't want us to beg. I got your point. You don't like us for many reasons. But there are says in Malay also, jangan disebabkan nila setitik susu sebelanga di I mean not because of one person or a group of people you are blaming the whole refugee community. I acknowledge, I fully inform about whatever happening and will continue happen in place like Selayang. But not everybody in Selayang are refugees. Not everybody in Selayang are migrant. Out of this refugee and migrant, there are local people who are benefiting out of the refugee, out of the migrant. When you don't acknowledge, when you don't give us right to work, government cannot track where are we working. Government are not getting our tax. We are paying our GST in very small portion. But just imagine by allowing refugee work legally in the state, in the country, we will able to contribute back to the country in terms of economic growth. We will able to create more job opportunity. And when I say about job opportunity, let me be very clear. Some people have approached me saying, in particular, Rohingya refugees are dumb, they've never been to school, this and that, they have no education. Let me stop you there. When you I said we can create more opportunity to work, it doesn't mean we are opening a business and local people work for us. No, what I meant was we can fill up the gap. There are thousand works opportunity that our local people, I'm sorry, Malaysian local are not willing to work in, especially in 3D job. It's dangerous. I worry for my family. Low income, low pay. I'm not willing to pay for the minimum wages. I want 4-digit salary. We are not asking for those. In personal experience, I would not want to get arrested because I am trying to support or trying to feed my family. If I'm still going out and work, I got arrested. And you are saying Hasna is bad. She committed crime because she did not obey the law of Malaysia. I I against that. I disagree. It's not fair. You force me into situation to work illegally. Why should you put me in that situation where I might get arrested for being of for feeding my family? That's not fair. Wallahi. The only thing we are asking, if you don't want to decide now, when? I was born and grew up in Malaysia. My daughter was born. Our third generation in Malaysia. When else you want to take decision to give work right to refugees? Until when you want to wait? Refugee work illegally? That's what the sentence or line being used. But until when you want all this work exploitation happen? I won't talk about the good name in international level. That's international responsibility. I think countries such as USA and other developed countries should also play an important role telling Malaysia, if you can't do this, try this. For example, IMM 13. If that's not working, okay, fine. Try something else. Develop something new where all refugees are treated equally. Just because we belong to a minority country, minority community, just because our parents did not have an education, you cannot count us or title us that we are not eligible to have at least IMM 13 benefit. We want our children to go to school as well. Just because my children are Rohingya refugee, not Syrian refugee, my children are not allowed to go to school. Again, that's not fair. I know when this video posted, because I keep saying it's not fair, I know plenty of comment will come out. If this is not fair, go back to your country. I swear, if our country was peace, none of my people, none of people from Burma or any other world country will come to Malaysia. There are plenty of reason why we don't want to come there. But there is no one reason for us to go back to our hometown. When you say why people in Syria are fighting for their land, but people in Burma are not fighting for their land, let me answer in this video. We are not capable of fighting. We were so oppressed for generation by generation by generation. Now we feel like if we fight, not only me die, my seventh generation will die. And none of the viewer in this video will agree that if anything happened to Malaysia in future, I will not leave Malaysia. No matter what happened in Malaysia, if any war happened, anything happened, I promise, I swear, I will not leave Malaysia. None of the viewer can do that, because when times come at the threatening level, whether it's your life or your loved one, you will decide, despite of knowing the country that you are going is full of humiliation, racism, xenophobic, Islamophobic, and all sort of stress. But we still decided to come here for very simple reason. We want to continue living. We want our loved one to continue living. By giving us work right, it's not a big, it's not a bad decision. It's a good deal for both sides. We will secure ourselves and our family while earning with dignity, and the government will develop their economic in no time, because we have a lot of refugees who are very good in skills. We just need a correct opportunity. And please don't decide something out of box saying Rohingya refugees are good in farming. Rohingya Syrian refugees are good in manufacture. No, every person is unique. Every person is unique. Place us in a place, in a work, in a job that we are capable of striking. not putting us down, because by the end of the day, we are all human beings. We are going to the same place. We are going to face the same God. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sister Hasna, for the very valuable discussion. Uh, so, inshallah, we will
Okay.
continue. We will continue with Brother Aslam. If you have anything to discuss, is with Brother Sister Hasna, you can continue for a few minutes. Okay, inshallah, if we have question, then we will continue to question and answer. Still now, we don't have any question in the chat box. Maybe they would like to ask personally with the video on. So after that, we will go to question and answer. So, brother Aslam, please continue.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to add some points. Hasta, explained very eloquently about the situation, the lived realities of refugees in Malaysia. And I think the logic of Malaysian government and Malaysian state is if we recognize refugee status, if we grant them rights, including work rights, it will be a pull factor. So there's always this pull factor argument by the government, if including work rights actually. So I was privileged to meet with the minister, and he's also concerned. I mean, he expressed the government's concern. If we allow them to work, more refugees will be attracted to come. Again, as Hasna mentioned earlier, no one will want to leave their home countries, unless they are forced to, unless they want to save their lives. So the logic, I mean, it's not there. It's not logical to think that if I grant you work rights, for example, then thousands or millions of people would come into the country, as simple as that. Because leaving your home countries is not easy, believe me. And Hasna already explained to us earlier. um, and um, and I think another point is we have to highlight that when we advocate for legal work rights for refugees, we don't mean the government must find jobs for them. We're not saying that. Refugees, they are independent people. They are very resilient. They have many resources. They will be fine. They will find the jobs by themselves, just like what they have been doing all this while. So when the government allows them to work, it means that we don't put a legal barrier to the employment. So this means that whenever they go to search for jobs, for example, the employers feel confident, to hire refugees because they know that it is legal. They know that, they will not be, punished by the government for hiring an undocumented person. And for refugees, of course, it's a great opportunity, and also it provides, a greater protection if anything happens, just like what Hasna mentioned about insurance, for example. And I would like to share with you a story about this one Rohingya man. So back in 2017, the Malaysian government launched a pilot project to allow supposedly 300 Rohingya refugees to work in two companies, Samdabi and also Gardenia. So the project with Samdabi failed. Well, there were many reasons that contributed to that, but the ongoing one is with Gardenia. So currently, if I'm mistaken, around 57 Rohingya refugees actually are working with Gardenia. And interestingly, they got work permits, they got the insurance coverage, they got accommodation once they joined this program. And I met this guy. Interestingly, he said previously before he joined Gardenia, he actually was working as a construction worker, and then somehow he almost got blind because his eye somehow got hit by a nail, and then he had to fork out the money, thousands of ringgit, to get the treatment at the hospital. Of course, being in an informal worker, it was an unsafe working conditions. But once he joined Gardenia, he got dengue. Maybe it's a different thing, it's not work accident, but then he got dengue. And then everything was covered by the insurance, paid by the employer. So, this means that, they can enjoy greater protection with minimum risk while working. So and this, of course, will increase the productivity of the company, of the worker, and eventually, of the company. So it is good actually for the company. And if we want to talk about economic contribution, Hasna also mentioned, um, if we look at the recent report, I think it's 2019 report by Ideas about the economic contribution that refugees can, give. The Malaysian government, the country can get if refugees are allowed to work legally. So they can actually, this policy can create between 2,500 and 4,300 jobs for Malaysians throughout the country, and it will also contribute to annual GDP to over 3 billion ringgit by 2024. So obviously, it gives good economic implications. And many employers actually talk about, including Malaysian Employers Federation, talk about the cost of hiring refugees who are already living in the country. It's much cheaper because you don't have to take them from their home countries. Um, when we talk about Selayang issue, right? So the government made the ruling not to allow any foreigner, including refugees, to work in KL, Pasar Borong KL. However, my recent visit actually showed that yes, refugees and foreigners are no longer working inside the complex, the Pasar Borong. However, around that area, refugees are still the backbone of the business operations there. This means that, employers, after all the fiasco, all the drama happened last year, all the rates, immigration rates, nowadays, the employers still couldn't find Malaysians who are willing to work there. And then, they have to go back to look for refugees who are willing to do all this hard work. And it's not just in Selayang area, actually. I also went to Klang, for example. Initially they said, they wouldn't allow refugees or undocumented migrants to work there. But then later on, after some time, they couldn't find Malaysians who are willing to do this kind of job. And eventually, refugees, are still working there. So they have become the backbone of the market operations there, which Malaysians also rely on. However, we also need to bear in mind that yes, of course, refugees, they are very hardworking, they do hard work. However, we need to consider, we need to remind ourselves that that shouldn't be a justification for us to continue exploiting them. Oh, because we know that they are refugees, they are not complaining, they just take whatever jobs that they can. That is available. But that is not a justification for us to keep continuing oppressing them and pay low wages, no um, off days, and so on, no insurance, because that means our economy is built upon discrimination and oppression. And this reminds me of a term coined by Munyandi about ghost labor. So, and he said that refugees, including Rohingya refugees and also migrant workers, they've become ghost labor because they are disposable. Whenever we need them, we call them. Whenever we don't want them, they conduct immigration raids. So we also need to talk about dignity of, of refugees as human beings, because they've gone through a lot, as refugees being persecuted, and of course, there are issues of mental health. Um, and as human beings, we need to know that these refugees, these are human beings that are not robots. So yes, they can provide their labor in our economy, But at the same time, we also need to bear in mind that they are people as well, because this is the problem with the, I think, the mindset of Malaysian government. Yes, I know we advocate for the right for refugees to work legally, but we should bear in mind that these are people and they are not simply labor. They are not simply economic units. Because once we see them as economic units, we keep saying that we keep considering how much contribution that they can give to the country instead of how can we assist them to develop their skills and potentials. So I think this is a tricky part, when we discuss about the right to work for refugees in the country. Thank you.
Allow me,
Thank you very much. Yes,
sorry,
yes,
Fayaz. Let
please
me let me
continue.
let me just jump in quickly before I forget a point. When you said don't count refugee and migrant, refugee in particular, as a economic digit. Am I right? Okay. I tell you what. Ask 100 at least. Use this as a survey. Ask 100 refugee. Are you okay to be digit for government for their economic? I promise you, they will say yes. As long as it's legal. We don't mind. You want to use our skill, at least even hard labor is a skill. Okay? Not everybody can wake up at 3 a.m. and go in Pasar Borong to carry vegetables and all. It's hard labor and it requires skill, discipline, and ability to perform the job. Those labor will say yes to you. I will say yes to you. Use me as a digit. Use my whole community as a digit. As long as you grant us right to work so that we earn with dignity and safely. Hard labor, most of them does not have insurance. We are still okay with that. We are still okay when there was no insurance. As long as we were not get arrested for being a contributor to the government and also to the family. How can you justify a 40 years old getting arrested because he was working? Okay, you arrest someone who is the only income for the family. By the end of the day, when the family end up being homeless, who are you blaming? Again, the refugee. We need the sense of security. I understand. I 100% understand. As I said, I have seen enough in Malaysia. I know the trend that how Malaysian government are thinking. They don't want to sign the refugee convention because they don't want to open the door for more refugees to come in. Whether they sign or they don't, not in 10 years, not in 10 days, every day there are more refugees. There are more refugees. Malaysia and other international countries have to work together to stop this war wherever it is, whether it's Afghanistan, Palestine, Bangladesh, Malaysia, anywhere. Anywhere there is a problem with humanitarian grounds, they have to work together to solve it. But when things are inside your house, you said, I will not open the door for you to leave the house, and I will not open the door to anyone come and help you inside the house. At the same time, I will not give you food. That is not fair. That's a modern day slavery. You want us to work, sustain ourselves. By the end of the day, we are doing that underground work, such as labor work, whether professional or non-professional work, by right interpreters in United Nations High Commission supposed to get work right because they are contributing back to the country. We are helping you to reduce your work burden to communicate. Those cleaner who are cleaning the road, they are working for Alam Flora. They are working for registered local organization or company. But when they got arrested, the company take their hand off, saying, oh, there was a subcontractor. That's not fair. It's not about the subcontractor or main contractor. We don't want anyone in between employer and the employee. We don't want agent in between anymore. Agent is taking away everything. By the end of the day, workers have nothing. They refugee, majority of them are getting below the minimum income. They are not getting minimum income. They are getting below the minimum income, and this is happening. Refugees are not going to contribute because they can't contribute to the local economic because the government can't help them. Government should be a little bit more open. It's not the first and second year where they are receiving refugees. It's been a lot of years, generation by generation. And I think Anisullah have a question for you, Aslam. But before you go to the question, I just want to tell everybody that giving work right equally to all refugees are important and crucial. Stop differentiating Syrian refugees, Rohingya refugees, Afghan refugees, because refugees are refugees. Everybody's are fighting for their life. If you are giving one right to one community because they are more educated, please give the same right to another community because they have skill. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sister Hasna. Okay, we have one question from Anisula. Before we pass to Brother Anisula, I want to highlight one point. If refugees are not given legal right to work, by any way they will work. That means they will do illegal work. They will do illegal job. They need to sustain themselves. If they cannot go to Pasaboro, they will go to another place. That place may be very dangerous, or maybe drug dealings and so on, because they cannot do legally. They have to do illegally underground. So jobs, underground works are always dangerous for the country, and the Malaysia has to put a lot of budget to clean up these businesses, to fight the crimes. So when you are not providing them legal right, mean you are expecting more crimes. They will do illegal job. Okay, so it is a good point to give them the legal job. It will have win-win situation for both the refugees and both hosting country, I think. So we pass to Brother Anisula. Please, you can ask your question directly to Brother Aslam. I know you have already posted in the chat box, but if you are comfortable, you can come forward with the video and you can ask to Brother Aslam. Is Brother Anisullah there?
Assalamualaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Uh, Thank you for giving me floor to ask some questions about Rohingya issues in Malaysia. As far as we know that we are Rohingyas, and then we are different. As a refugee, we are same, but as an ethnicity, we are very different from others. According to Malaysian law or according to the refugee law, we are same, but according to economic system we are very different from others. Like, as you can see, the Syrian, Palestinian and Afghani other people have passport. They come by passport, but they can fly to Malaysia. We are the only one generation, one Rohingya ethnicity, we have to come by boat to persecute another country. So other than that, there, as Sister Hasna says, uh, uh, Malaysian government or some organization cannot differentiate Rohingyas and other refugees, because as you can see, Bukit Bintang have a lot of business sector. As you can see, there is no other no one Rohingyas are business. Doing business there, but a lot of Syrian and Palestinian, what they can do, because they don't have. They are also refugees. I saw, because I met most of the Syrian and Palestinian. And this is one thing. And another thing, if Rohingya can work, in pilot project by negotiating or collaborating with KDN or the Malaysian government. Why other cannot, I mean, get same facilities, same, I mean, recognition also factories like loaf factories, you know that 52 Rohingyas are working inside loaf factories like Gardenia. And some Indonesia was collaborated one project like agriculture in rubber taper, but this was the some people who were sent, but they ran away from there because the employee didn't provide them food and then some like essential thing, and then they have to like as you mentioned, brother Aslam mentioned that exploited the employee exploited the refugees. This is the one the exactly thing every day happening, because that day if you say I am working in some organizations or I am getting I mean well paid or non well paid, as everyone know that we are below the minimum. Just as sister Hasna says, we work in international organization before, and then now also we are collaborating with some organization to I mean give back to the community. So, as what is your perspective for the Rohingyas, especially Rohingyas, because as Rohingyas are the most majority in Malaysia, more than 120,000 people. Other than that, other refugees are very less. So, what is your perspective for the the work legal issue for the Rohingyas? Thank you.
Okay, brother Aslam, please continue. You can continue.
Thank you, Anis, for your questions. In terms, I think firstly, I would like to state this that I often hear that people say, we are more persecuted than other groups. I agree, to a certain extent, but I think it's also dangerous to make that kind of distinction because you cannot really quantify persecution. I know in reality, yes, some probably are more persecuted than others, but I think if we keep repeating that, we are creating, animosity and resentment amongst each other. Because yes, other refugees, they are recognized citizens in their countries, but that doesn't mean they are safe. Because that's the main reason why they became refugees, right? Because they are also being persecuted for various reasons. Um, and I think regardless how you came here or what kind of persecution that you face back home, once you are in Malaysia, you are facing basically the same problems. You are unable to earn an income to have a decent and dignified livelihood because you are denied the basic right to work. So regardless whether you are Syrians, Rohingya, Afghans, Somalis, Sudanese, or whatever, or even if you're Malaysians, you've not, if you're denied the right to work, you will have the same kind of problems. And the right to work, and this denial of basic right will lead to other consequences. You have no income, and then that's why children are forced to beg. Because they cannot go to school because the parents don't have income, and when they cannot go to school, they will help their parents to beg, for example, because that's the easiest way, or become child labor, because we also have issues of child labor in Malaysia, including within the refugee community. And I can understand why they have to work because they need to support their parents who are not able to find stable jobs. And secondly, your question about the pilot project with KDN, right? So it's interesting. I talked to Saim Dabi officer about this project, and she also had no idea why why KDN, the Home Ministry, actually chose Saim Dabi. And this is why I think, as I mentioned earlier, when the government allows refugees to work legally, we don't expect the government to find the employers. No, because in this kind of pilot project, it's like it's a scheme by the government matching refugees and employers, Samdabi and Gardenia, and we're not expecting that because refugees are independent and they can look for the jobs by themselves. So with some Dabi, the project failed also because this kind of, just like what Hasna mentioned earlier about this mindset of certain group of people are only suitable of doing certain kind of jobs. So for example, the Rohingya, they were assigned to go to the plantation. That's the most suitable job for you. This is what the government thought at that time, when in reality different people as individuals who have different skills and we have different interests as well. So yeah, probably in our labor migration system, yes, migrants from 15 source countries, they know that when they come here, supposedly, they've chosen in which industry that they want to work in. So, but of course, in many cases, they also get cheated. So that's a different issue. But with the refugee community in the country, we have to consider so many aspects. We have to treat them as individuals who can make autonomous decisions, not as passive victims who can be instructed and ordered anytime. So we need to also hear their perspectives. So what is lacking in the pilot project scheme was that the consultation between different stakeholders. So I mean, you cannot simply do a pilot project as simple as that. You have to consult the stakeholders. And let's say the Sandabi project failed, right? And I think there were only like 14 workers working with Sandabi, and that project failed. And then instantly, the government and policymakers, they said, "Oh, look, we did this pilot project and it failed, and this showed that the refugee community um, you know uh, was ungrateful. They got the jobs and then they left the jobs without understanding the contributing factors, and it's only a small pilot project which was poorly planned. So how can you expect this kind of poorly planned pilot project to be successful? Thank you.
If I may
Thank you
jump
very much.
in, if I
Yes,
may
yes, you
jump
can.
in again, just to add on, when you say stakeholder, they did not even ask the refugee community what they are good at. They did not involve refugee in the discussion when they decide refugee, this particular refugee group are good in Sime Darby and this one good in Gardenia. No, there was no discussion made. Government decided what we're going to do for this refugee to show that we are doing something. By the end of the day, they blame the refugee, saying refugees are lazy. Rohingya refugees are lazy. We give them work, they don't want to work. And for everyone's information, Sime Darby is the largest work exploitations factory. It's the largest exploitation area. Even the migrant worker can't stand work there because of a lot of exploitation, late payment, no medical insurance, no proper paid. So all that in one particular companies or one particular sector, and you decided to put a random refugee community to that place who never worked in Sime Darby. Oh, I'm sorry, I keep saying Sime Darby. In plantation. Farming and plantation, two different things. They are part in Rakhine State where Rohingya refugee are good in farming. But it doesn't mean all Rakhine States Rohingya refugees are good in farming. Some of them are very good in manufacture. Some of them are very good in construction. That's why you can see there are so many subcontractors who are working in construction. They are good in that because they never do farming. They don't know how to do farming. If you are asking someone who don't have experience at all to go and do work in plantation, they won't work. Even Alhamdulillah, things work out in factory gardenia, where they make bread. Because it's factory work. They got instruction to follow, rules, regulation, and they kept their promises. I would say that's the main thing. The company kept their promises, such as giving them some benefits, rights, on time payment, safety, and we are there. We are working there with no complaints. We are not saying that, oh, they are paying our low, they are paying us $10 per hour and paying the local $20 per hour. I don't I don't heard that complaint yet. At least not for now, because we are still grateful that we have safe job. I hope I make sense.
Yeah, and I think again, it goes back to the unique characteristics of the individuals, right? Because even though you are Rohingya, but you have different interests and you have different skills. For example, Hasna is an NGO worker. Anis is also an NGO worker. So you have skills, interpersonal skills to deal with people, to handle cases. Then how can you expect both of you, for example, even though you're Rohingya, but then people think that you're Rohingya, you are not educated, go to the plantation area and work there. Of course, we will waste your skills, and you also don't want to work there. For example, if you put me in the plantation, I'm not interested in working that kind of sector, not because I look down on people like working in that sector, because I'm not capable of doing that kind of job. So of course I will leave as well. So we also need to think, there are many many factors why people it's not people are not suitable to work in particular sector. That is why it is important to allow them to work legally wherever they want to work. It's up to them because it is legal. Just find the suitable jobs that you think that is suitable for you, and employers can also employ you without any risk.
Thank you very much. Before we pass to Brother Adisula raised hand again. So I just want to say thanks to Brother Aslam and Sister Hasna for answering his question. And I want to make an announcement that the audience today, they can ask question in Rohingya, in Burmese, and also in Malay, and also in English, and also in Punjabi. Sister Hasna can speak a lot of languages. So I will translate it. I will speak it in Myanmar and Rohingyas so that the audience know. So Assalamualaikum. Ditara Rohingya by call asore. Tona tido di solve it to gore khole tona Rohingya hatama ji solve kori bhariba. Dori tona tido di English at the mola hota hote দুখন হইলে তই ৰঙা হতৰ মাজে হৈ পাৰিবা মলা হতৰ মাজে হৈ পাৰিবা আমাৰ মৌলানা হাবিব এৰে অংগনময় দেখন তুমি যদি সলভ করতে স্বয়ং হলে মলা মাঝে হৈ পাৰিবা ৰঙা হতৰ মাজে হৈ পাৰিবা আমাৰ সিস্টার হাসনাত আছে লাগাঘান খুলিবা ট্রান্সলেট কৰি পাৰিব bamalu mei sile bamalu pyo sile lure sile bamalu mei lo yare chano dima bada pyan pe ko lure sile အဲ့တော့ကိုကျွမ်းကျင်တဲ့ကိုနားလေတဲ့ကို comfortable ဖြစ်တဲ့ကျွမ်းကျင်တဲ့ဘာသာစကားနဲ့မေးခွန်းနဲ့မေးလို့ရတယ်သက်ဆိုင်တဲ့လူတွေကဖြေကြပေးမယ်လိုအဲ့လို့ရှိရင်ကျွန်တော်ဘာသာပြန်ပေးမယ် so I pass to brother Anis again so if we have question then we will jump to another person later.
Yes, thank you, brother Fayez. Just one clarification, a little bit only, because you see, who were sent to plantation. Just one thing, plantation project. That one actually not chosen by the Rohingyas. Actually, when Rohingyas doesn't have work, they approach to EST department at UNHCR. You know that there is one sector in UNHCR is EST department, which they facilitate. They just give information or pass information to the Rohingyas. There is one kind of job like that. Do you want to job? Do you want to go there or not? But because Rohingya have, the one they are very weakness. They have weakness that they already have don't have job, so they want to do. But this kind of job actually, when they were sent to there, but they know that this job is not suitable for them. They didn't explain what kind of job is that, but when they went there or they sent there, UNHCR pass number also maybe they just explain something a little bit only. After then when they went there, the employee didn't go there 1 week or 1 month also. They pass some rice, one, two sacks of rice, and then some like dry food or anything like Maggie or something like that. After 1 month, the boss will come see again. This is like a kind of exploitation. This one was happening. That's why the Rohingyas ran away from the plantation sector. Actually, just now, Sister Hasna mentioned that nobody, no stakeholders or no UNHCR discuss with Rohingyas or no Rohingya individuals or Rohingya leaders or anyone. Just they send pass information and then just send the Rohingyas. After then, when they run away, then they complain the Rohingya not grateful to the stakeholders or the Malaysians or anyone. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. And we can see we have a brother Imran, and also we have Michael Boy and Mr. Yusuf, and also Nick Muhammad. Thank you for joining us. So, is there anyone who would like to ask a question? We have a few more minutes, and I think we have one message from Sister. Okay, Sister Hasna, thank you very much for joining us. You may leave because we know it's already late there in US, so maybe you want to take rest. Is Thank you very much, and we are very happy to see you. Inshallah, we will see you in other program. Inshallah, if chances are given. Okay, so you may leave. Before you leave, maybe you can leave any messages for us. If you want to say anything, you can.
I just want to say thank you for inviting me. Thank you so much. This is my first time talking again after coming to United States. It's been a year. I've been fasting with no talking publicly because of a lot of things with translation. So yeah. So thank you so much for inviting me. If you guys have any questions that come out later on, you can ask. You can write it down to Brother Fayaz, and Brother Fayaz can send it to me. Inshallah, I will try to respond it to you in timely manner, hopefully. And thank you so much. Nothing more than that.
Okay, okay, see you soon. Inshallah.
Assalamualaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. So if anyone has question, you can please raise your hand, and you can or maybe you can type your question in the chat box. If we don't have any question, I would like to have any some point. Refugees are not returning home. I have been in Malaysia since 2006. I have been here for nearly 1.5 decade. So my father came to Malaysia in 1995, which means he has been here for more than 2.5 decades. So all of my family members are staying in Malaysia. Me and my brother got married in Malaysia, and we got kids born in Malaysia. So even my niece got married in Malaysia, and she got kids born in Malaysia. So more than fourth generation of Rohingya are living in Malaysia. They are not returning home. So the best solution for us is to use them in a way which mutually benefit to all. So these refugees are not going back home. Even if UNHCR will settle all these refugees in Malaysia, it will take more than 50 years. So the best way is we need to do something. We need to we need to cooperate with these refugees. So if we are not giving them legal right to work, not having legal right to work often result to participation in 3D jobs, dirty, dangerous, and demeaning job, forced to involve in criminal activities such as thievery, robbery, and smuggling for not having other choice. And Malaysian Malaysian national poverty line of income is 2,280 ringgit per household. So refugees in Malaysia, they don't have a legal right to work, but they are doing their work, and they are having income below the below national poverty line. That means they are having low income, so they have to stay in one house, two three families like that. So it create more domestic violences, and also it create more pretty crimes, small things, kind of crime. So by allowing them to work, they will in Malaysia they will have low crime, and they will need to expand uh, less less in investigating that kind of crime. So it will have brother Aslam also already discussed, and sister Hasna already discussed about the win-win situation of refugees and hosting country. So this is only a few points from me. If we have any question, please you can continue with your question. If we don't have question, then we will end up our section, inshallah. Is there anyone who would like to ask question? Don't have any question from the floor, so we can.
I think can I ask a question, please?
Yes. Who is talking? The Muhammad Junaid. Yes, you are welcome.
Yes. Uh, Thank you. Sorry, I was late. I could not really listen to Brother Aslam. As we're discussing about the potential business prospect in Malaysia to coexist with the Malaysian citizen and the refugees, I was wondering if there's any systematic approach being done by the government, Malaysian government, for the refugees to implement the business or any potential incentives. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question, Muhammad Junaid. I think Muhammad Junaid is speaking from Sydney right now, right? Yeah.
Yes. Sorry, I forgot to give my introduction. My name is Mohammed Junaid, and I'm talking from Sydney. Sorry, I forgot. I missed out some of the parts. That's why I'm asking this question. Thank you.
Yeah, brother. I think brother Aslam is still online. If you got the question, can you please answer, brother Aslam?
Yeah, apologies. My laptop got some problems earlier. Assalamualaikum Junaid. Oh, it's nice to hear from you after a long time. Um, yeah, so
Thank you.
unfortunately, there's no plan by the I mean, there's no concrete plan by the government. So the government keeps saying about studying on this proposal. So the latest one was that was when Muhyiddin Yassin was the prime minister. So he sat in the parliament, and he assigned the Ministry of Human Resources to study again after so long, to study about this proposal to grant refugees work rights. And after that, me and other colleagues, we managed to meet with the Minister of Human Resources to discuss this. Now we have a new government. It's still the same minister of human resources, but unfortunately, there's no concrete plan until now. So I think that says a lot about Malaysia's about Malaysia's stance towards refugees, because it seems to me that they think this is not important. even though this policy affects thousands of refugees who are unable to, earn a living. But to the government, it is not an issue. And especially during COVID time, there's always a concern. They always want to prioritize their own citizens first. Well, it's not unique just during the pandemic times. It is something that is like that for so long in Malaysia. So Malaysia has become, we want to prioritize our own citizens. That's the main stance, and therefore this means that we neglect the foreigners, the non-citizens, the migrant workers, refugees, stateless people. Um, Even though the recent prime minister mentioned about keluarga Malaysia, Malaysian family, so I would like to, call the government to extend the concept of family, not just to include Malaysian citizens, but also anyone who lives in Malaysia, the inhabitants of this country, because everyone in this country helps and contributes to the nation building process, not just in economic growth, but also in the nation building process. So unfortunately, um, you know, there's no clear scheme or any clear plan by the government. As we discussed earlier, the ongoing project is only the pilot project with Gardenia, and they are currently employing 57 Rohingya men. You should just compare that 57 to hundreds, well, more than 100,000 of eligible refugees who are in the working age, right? And I think I just also want to highlight about the fear of small numbers. So in Malaysia, again, as I mentioned earlier, so we want to prioritize Malaysian nationals because we think, many Malaysians think that foreigners, they come here and they will dominate this country, which is absurd. So they are using this argument and to say that our position is being threatened by foreigners, refugees, migrants, whoever who are not the citizens of this country. And this is not unique in Malaysia as well. We see the rise of Donald Trump, right-wing politicians and right-wing political ideologies all around the world. Even though it is not unique in Malaysia, it is happening all around the world. I think it is very important for us to reflect, on ourselves, especially in this country, which we always boast to be a multiracial, multi-ethnic, multi-religious country.
Thank you
Thank you,
very
Brother
much,
Islam. That was really
Brother Aslam.
insightful.
Yes, if we have any
Thank you.
question, please raise your hand and you may go ahead. Or if while waiting, I would like to wrap up some points. Inshallah, after that, we will end our talk if we don't have any question. Uh, if the government grant refugees the right to work, uh, I'm just wrapping up what Brother Aslam said and Brother Sister has mentioned. They might contribute more than 3 billion ringgit Malaysia. Maybe the figure may be different, maybe vary by 2024 to the Malaysian GDP, and more than 50 million ringgit Malaysia in tax revenue increase each year by expanding the tax base, according to a recent report by IDS. Employing the refugee could complement local workers instead of substituting them, and will create up to 40,000 jobs for Malaysia's if I'm not wrong, the figure may be different. Malaysia can also reduce the cost of law enforcement associated with arrest and detention of refugees who work illegally. When the refugee got arrested, they have to detain in the camp. So there is a cost also for the government. Legal work right could have to eliminate forced labor. So it will create good image for Malaysia if the refugees are given working right. Otherwise, there will be forced labor because these refugees they don't have any document or they are not they don't have any party who are looking after of these refugees. And if refugee can earn enough, they will send their children to community-based learning center or to the school. So, with access to education, children will be protected from being forced to work as undocumented labor. This will be in line with the UNHCR Convention and the Right of Child, which Malaysia had already ratified. Will have skillful refugee labor in the future for the job market to fill the labor gap. So will reduce time and costs compared to hiring labor from foreign countries. So these are some of the point I catch up or I get it from this conference. Or still we don't have anyone who has raised their hand. So maybe Brother Aslam can wrap up our talk today, and we will end up inshallah. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Fayaz, and also the organizer. So I think again, I just want to stress a few points. It is very important to allow refugees to work legally. And in my PhD, I look at three aspects actually: protection, livelihoods, and dignity. Protection, of course, we can protect the refugee workers, and this will also mean that we can um, try to rectify the forced labor issues and also trafficking. And secondly, livelihoods. Refugees can earn in a dignified way, and they can sustain themselves because the government will not support them, and the government has not supported them anyway. So they have been very independent. So if they can work legally, they can support themselves and be independent, and there will be other positive impacts, such as they can send their children to the learning centers, and this means the children will be educated, and will not end up begging or working as child labor. And thirdly, dignity. It is important to treat refugees as human beings, because they have gone through so many traumatic experiences, being persecuted, and we as a nation, we need to question about our nation building process. The economic development of this country has been built by foreigners, refugees, migrants, stateless people, as well as Malaysians. So this is why I mentioned earlier the concept of keluarga Malaysia. The Malaysian family should should comprise of these different groups living in this country, because everyone is contributing and has contributed a lot to this country. And again, I would like to stress that when we advocate for the right to work for refugees in Malaysia, we do not expect the government, or we do not demand the government to provide jobs for them. Just allow refugees to work legally, and then they will be independent. They will look for jobs by themselves. Let the markets work. So even at the moment, it is like that. Unfortunately, because of the legality issue, This means that we are I mean, we incur losses, a lot of losses from the shadow economy, from informal economy. So to create a win-win situation, borrowing the term from you, Fayaz, it is crucial for us to allow refugees to work legally because it will create a win-win situation for refugees themselves as well as Malaysians, Malaysian people, and also Malaysian government, Malaysian state. So this is the way forward, to achieve a better solution. Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us today. Inshallah, we will meet again if the chance arise there or opportunities given. And also, thank you very much, our host today, for his very good, very hard work for organizing all these technical things, and also our organizers and also the audience who are attended this session. So, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. And if you have any question, you can contact us through our WhatsApp and also on our Facebook. So maybe you can visit to our Facebook arc.kuala Lumpur. Okay, see you all, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.